Adi Gaura Bhaktava. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 14. We have been reading the section where Lord Ṛṣabhadeva is giving instructions to his sons. Karmashayam Hridaya Granthi Bandham
Karma Ashayam Hridaya Granthi Bandhanam
Avidyaya Saditam Apramataha
Avidya Asaditam Apramatha Anena
Anena Yogena Yathopadesham
Anena Yogena Yatha Upadesham
Samyak Vyapohayo Parameta Yoga
Samyak Vyapoha Uparmeta Yogat.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. So first he was telling him how to get liberated, and now he's telling them, don't even get attached to the desire of liberation. The process of liberation is Brahma Jigyasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jigyasa is called Neti Neti, the process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. This method continues as long as one is not situated in his spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahma Bhuta, the self-realized state. So Neti Neti, not this, not this. In search of the spirit, trying to understand that matter and spirit is different. So spiritual life is Brahma Bhuta, means one understands. In the words of Bhagavad Gita 18:54, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So this is the Brahma Bhuta platform. Krishna is saying pure devotional service begins from this platform where one understands one is spirit soul. Means it's already liberation. The living entity is liberated. The idea is to enter into the Parabhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence. But when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. So as one engages in devotional service, automatically one gets the knowledge and detachment. It's simultaneously, just like when we eat food, simultaneously our hunger goes away, we feel satisfied, we feel nourished. Similarly, engaging in devotional service, automatically we the knowledge is revealed to us, and we get detached from the material world. So the pure devotee is always liberated. The pure devotee, his consciousness is purified. He does not have a material consciousness anymore. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, text 26, Krishna says, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. The unflinching execution of devotional service is in itself Brahmabhuta. So the unflinching execution of devotional service in itself is Brahmabhuta. So the liberated devotee is always engaged in pure devotional service. So anyone who's engaged in pure devotional service already is understood his position as spirit soul. That's the reason he is engaging in devotional service. Another important feature in this connection is anena yogena yathopadesham. The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. So sometimes it may be that one is not able to immediately follow the instructions, but may be able to do it at a later stage, like Srila Prabhupada. He got instruction in his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He got the instruction to give this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in the English-speaking language, but he was not able to complete it until later in his life. But he followed. The focal point is to follow the instructions. One may not be able to follow it immediately, but one should follow, not deviate from or surpass. One should not try to think, oh, I'm more clever than my spiritual master. So having that humility and no deviation, because when we deviate, then we may try to mentally concoct something, and then that might be very detrimental to our spiritual life. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order, Yathopadesham. So here, consulting books means, like there are so many other books, so not unnecessary reading, but of course, reading Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, that is devotional service. That is needed continuously, regularly. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Regularly we need to. What is writing here, consulting books, is for the purpose of just scholarship, Mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception, but when one actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. So, if one is on the path of mysticism also, one engages in devotional service, then he can give up the process of mysticism. The point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service cannot be given up. Devotional service is the eternal activity of the soul. It's the eternal activity of the living entity. And so, this is the Sanatan Dharma, devotional service, Sanatan Dharma. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 7, Text 10, Atma Ramascha Manayo Nirgrantha Api Urukrame Kurvanti Ahaitukim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Guno Hari. Even those who are liberated Atmaram must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized, but at no stage can one give up devotional service. All other activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. So the devotee, even after liberation, he continues to hear and chant. He continues to engage in devotional service. And he progresses further and further. Then he gets a taste for devotional service, taste for hearing, chanting. Then he gets attached to hearing and chanting. Then he gets bhav, emotions for Krishna. And then love for Krishna, Krishna prema. So in fact, one who's Atmaram, one who's liberated, they take great pleasure in hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. Just as we were hearing that Sukadeva Goswami was liberated, he heard Bhagavatam, he got so attached to hearing Bhagavatam. So after liberation, one may give up the process of mysticism, one may give up the process of speculative knowledge. but one continues devotional service. Bhakti is never to be given up, hearing and chanting.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so this is where the Sambandh, Abhideya, and Prayojana, right, comes, the stages, the 3 stages of spiritual advancement.
Yes,
Right?
that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's right. Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. Sambandha, understanding our relationship with the Supreme Lord. Abhidaya is the process of devotional service. And the result?
Prayojana, love for Krishna, right? The ultimate goal.
Love for Krishna. Yeah, the goal, love for Krishna. Yes, thank you. Putramscha shishyamscha nipur gururva.
Putranscha Shishyancha Nripa Gururva
Maloka kamo madanugrahartha.
Matlok Kama Mat Anugra Artha
Itham vimanyur anushishyadat atach gyan.
Itham Vimanyu Anushishayata
Nayo jayet karma sukarma mudha.
Nayo Jayete Karma Sukarma Mudha
Kamyo jayan manujortham labeta.
Kamyo Jayan Manuja Artham Labheta
Nipatyanashtadrisham higarte.
Nibatyanashtadarsham Higarte.
If one is serious about going back home, back to Godhead, he must consider the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the summum bonum, and the chief aim of life. If he is a father instructing his sons, a spiritual master instructing his disciples, or a king instructing his citizens, he must instruct them as I have advised. Without being angry, he should continue giving instructions, even if his disciple, son, or citizen is sometimes unable to follow his order. Ignorant people who engage in pious and impious activities should be engaged in devotional service by all means. They should always avoid fruitive activity. If one puts into the bondage of karmic activity his disciple, son, or citizen who is bereft of transcendental vision, how will one profit? It is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:26. Na buddhi bedam janayet agyanam karma sanginam joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action. They should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but to work in the spirit of devotion. So Krishna is advising to Arjuna that, whatever level one is at, one should be encouraged at that level so that there is a gradual elevation of consciousness. Like somebody is in second grade, we can't tell them something about PhD. So a gradual process. So Krishna is saying they should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but work in the spirit of devotion. So working for the pleasure of Krishna. We can't tell people, no, don't do any work, don't do, because that will cause disruption. No, work. Yes, as Krishna is telling Arjuna, do your duty for my satisfaction. So working for the pleasure of Krishna, doing the duties by keeping Krishna in the center, understanding that this is a position I have somehow the other received. Let me do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Loka swayam shriye sinashtadrishtir
Lokam swayam shreyasi drishtim
Your samihe tanikama kama.
yo arthan samihet nikam kamaha
Anyonya vera sukalesha heto.
anyo anya vera suklesh heto
Ananta dukham chanaveda mudha.
ananta dukham chanaved mudaha.
Due to ignorance, the materialistic person does not know anything about his real self-interest, the auspicious path in life. He is simply bound to material enjoyment by lusty desires, and all his plans are made for this purpose. For temporary sense gratification, such a person creates a society of envy, and due to this mentality, he plunges into the ocean of suffering. Such a foolish person does not even know about this. The word nashta drishti, meaning one who has no eyes to see the future, is very significant in this verse. Life goes on from one body to another, and the activities performed in this life are enjoyed or suffered in the next life. So the action and reaction enjoyed in the next life, if not later in this life. So one who is unintelligent, who has no eyes to see the future, simply creates enmity and fights with others for sense gratification. As a result, one suffers in the next life. But due to being like a blind man, he continues to act in such a way that he suffers unlimitedly. Such a person is a mudha, one who simply wastes his time and does not understand the Lord's devotional service. So here, Ṛṣabhadeva is asking us to rise above. He's saying, use your intelligence, become intelligent. Don't remain foolish. We are not able to understand that our actions have reactions, and those reactions will come to us either in this life or those reactions will come to us in the next life. And then we unnecessarily get so entangled in a situation. Because of our attachment, we may get envious or we may get angry, but then all that comes back to us. Those reactions come back to us itself. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavrita Udoyam Nabhijanati Loko Mam Ajam Avyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. Krishna says that only those who are intelligent can understand Krishna. Otherwise, he covers himself up by his Yoga Maya. That's why, and it's very few. Krishna himself says, Manushyanam Sahasreshu, that hardly anyone knows me in truth, Krishna says. Because most of us, we are covered. We are covered. Krishna just covers himself up. So only by devotional service can one understand Krishna. Krishna is actually unborn. But we think, oh, he's the son, he's only the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. But he's also the Supreme Lord. Yes, he's their son. Yes, of course. But he's also the Supreme Lord. And Krishna is infallible. He never forgets he's God. He always remains God. Right? His position is supreme. So only those who are intelligent can understand Krishna's position as Supreme Lord. He himself is saying. In the Katha Upanishad, it is also said, Avidyayam antare vartamana swayam dhira panditam manyamana. Although ignorant, people still go to other blind men for leadership. As a result, both are subjected to miserable conditions. The blind lead the blind into the ditch. So like in the previous verse, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva was saying that, the spiritual master or the father, the king, they need to instruct their subordinates into devotional service. Otherwise, it is blind leading the blind. It is like we ourselves are going into a dark well, and we are causing others also to go into the dark well. So, engaging in devotional service and telling others to engage in devotional service. This is what Lord Caitanya said, that Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna, Shiksha. Bolo Krishna, chant Krishna's name. Bhajo Krishna, worship Krishna. Koro Krishna, Shiksha. Follow instructions of Krishna.
And then the next line is really beautiful. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dhan Pran. It's a beautiful line. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you all want to comment anything on what we've been reading?
I just wanted to say one thing regarding what we read in the 15th verse. Yeah, that like as you said, that the blind leading the blind, and just a line above that was that you put them, उसे कर्म के बंधन में डाला जाए तो भला वही कैसे लाभान्वित होगा. And that's what we are doing. We are trying to do the punya karmas. We are trying to do the sakam karma without devotional service, without offering it to Krishna. So that means that we are being put into the well again and again. We think कि हम तो पुण्य कर रहे, but what is the benefit of that punya? That punya will lead us nowhere.
Yeah, but don't be so hard on yourself, because we also have to understand that we have to gradually, there's a gradual elevation of consciousness.
No, I know that. But then if we read and if we try to understand, then we can just connect it to Krishna.
Yes.
We can just connect it. That's the easiest way. We can offer the results to Krishna. Ki Krishna, I'm doing it, but I offer the result to you. So that's more easy way. Because definitely we will do that. But we can just offer the result to Krishna. So that way we will not bound ourselves into it. We can just try. So that was really nice line.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Kastam swayam tad abhigyo vipaschit.
Kastam swayam tad abhigyo vipaschit.
Avidyayam antare vartamanam.
Avidyamantare vartamanam.
Drishva punastam sagrahana kubuddhim.
Shrishta punatam sagrana kubuddhim.
Prayojayet pathagam yathandam.
Prayojayet patgam yathandam.
If someone is ignorant and addicted to the path of samsara, how can one who is actually learned, merciful, and advanced in spiritual knowledge engage him in fruitive activity and thus further entangle him in material existence? If a blind man is walking down the wrong path, how can a gentleman allow him to continue on this way to danger? How can he approve this method? No wise or kind man can allow this. So Ṛṣabhadeva is saying, if you're going to see someone is going to fall into the well, so immediately you're going to grab him and try to get him out. Anyone who is kind, anyone who's wise is going to try to save another. It's just instinctive. Gurur na sasyat, svajano na sasyat.
Gurur na sasyat, svajano sasyat.
Pita na sasya janani na sasya.
पिता न
पिता न
सस्यात्
सस्यात्
जननी
जननी
न
न
सस्यात्
सस्यात्
Devam na tatsya na patischa sasyan.
देवं न
देवं न
तस्यात्
तत्स्या
न
न
पति च
पतिश्च सस्या
सस्यात्
Namo chayedya samupeta mrityu.
नमो
नमोच्चयेद्य
जयेय
समुपेत मृत्युम्.
One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. So Lord Ṛṣabhadeva is saying that the leaders, the authority, they should be able to deliver their dependents out of this material world. There are many spiritual masters, but Ṛṣabhadeva advises that one should not become a spiritual master if he's unable to save his disciple from the path of birth and death. Unless one is a pure devotee of Krishna, he cannot save himself from the path of repeated birth and death. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. One can stop birth and death only by returning home, back to Godhead. However, who can go back to Godhead unless he understands the Supreme Lord in truth? Janma karma chametityam evam yoveti tattvataha. Understanding Krishna in tattva, understanding the position of Krishna, tattva, his position as God, as Supreme Lord. Then only one can stop the cycle of birth and death. We have many instances in history illustrating Ṛṣabhadev's instructions. Shukracharya was rejected by Bali Maharaj due to his inability to save Bali Maharaj from the path of repeated birth and death. Shukracharya was not a pure devotee. He was more or less inclined to fruitive activity. And he objected when Bali Maharaj promised to give everything to Lord Vishnu. So we can see we are always supposed to follow the spiritual master, right? But there are instances when one rejects the spiritual master, and Bali Maharaj is an example of that he rejected Shukracharya's instruction. When Shukracharya told him, don't give charity to Vishnu, that this Brahman boy is Vishnu, and don't give him charity. So Bali Maharaj rejected it. Actually, one is supposed to give everything to the Lord because everything belongs to the Lord. Consequently, the Supreme Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita 9:27, Yat karoshi yat ashnasi yat juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. This is bhakti. So Krishna is very clearly telling Arjuna what to do. He's saying, oh, everything you do, everything that you eat, whatever you're giving away also, whatever you're offering others, any penances or austerities you're doing, you do everything as an offering to me. Unless one is devoted, he cannot give everything to the Supreme Lord. Now we may say, why shall I give to Krishna? I want to keep it for myself. I'm sorry, we are so attached to our result. That's why we work hard, because we want to keep the result for ourselves. But Krishna is saying, do it for him. So how can we fill the gap? So we continue to hear and chant. We continue to hear and chant so that we can be able to do everything for Krishna. We may not be able to do it now, but we continue hearing and chanting. So one day we can do that. Unless one can do so, he cannot become a spiritual master, husband, father, or mother. Similarly, the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices gave up their relatives just to satisfy Krishna. This is an example of a wife rejecting a husband who cannot deliver her from the impending dangers of birth and death. Yeah, so Shukracharya, so that instance, Bali Maharaj rejects the spiritual master. The wives of the Brahmanas, they left their husbands to feed Krishna. They realized that their husbands were just, just in name they were Brahmanas. They were just chanting the mantras for the sake of it. But they won't be able to take them out of the material world because they were not really devotees. The wives were devotees and they went to Krishna and they told Krishna, now we cannot go back. Our husbands are not going to accept us because in those days, once the wife leaves the home, then she won't be accepted back. But Krishna says, no, don't worry, you go, everything will be okay. And in fact, once after the wives go back, the husbands were praising the wives. They said, wow, you are glorious. We have been here doing sacrifices, but we don't understand the meaning of doing these sacrifices. Whereas you have understood the essence, and that is love and devotion to Krishna. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj rejected his father and Bharat Maharaj rejected his mother, Janani Nasya. Prahlad Maharaj rejected his father, Hiranyakashipu. Bharat Maharaj rejected his mother. I'm not sure of this pastime. I don't know if anyone knows it. We can share it. The word Devam indicates a demigod or one who accepts worship from a dependent. Ordinarily, the spiritual master, husband, father, mother, or superior relative accepts worship from an inferior relative. But here Ṛṣabhadeva forbids this. First, the father, spiritual master, or husband must be able to release the dependent from repeated birth and death. If he cannot do this, he plunges himself into the ocean of reproachment for his unlawful activities. So here Ṛṣabhadeva is saying that one should not accept the worship of one's position if one is not able to actually engage their subordinate in devotional service. Everyone should be very responsible and take charge of his dependents, just as a spiritual master takes charge of his disciple, or a father takes charge of his son. All these responsibilities cannot be discharged honestly unless one can save the dependent from repeated birth and death. So what Ṛṣabhadeva is saying, that we ourselves have to become devotees, and then only we can take up positions of responsibility of being a father, mother, spiritual master, or even a king, he says in the earlier words. So that the dependents, so that we can guide the dependents out of this material world. So this is Lord Ṛṣabhadeva's instructions to everyone. Idam shariram mama durvibhavyam.
Idam
Idam
shariram
shariram mama
durvibhavyam
durvibhavyam
Sattvam hi me hridayam yatra dharmaha.
Sattvam hiridayevam yatra dharma
dharmaha
Prishte krito me yadadharma arad.
Prishte kritam me yad
yad
adharma arad
Ato himam Ṛṣabham prahur yaha.
Ato himam Ṛṣabhadam prahu aryo.
My transcendental body, Satchidananda Vigraha, looks exactly like a human form, but it is not a material human body. It is inconceivable. I am not forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. I take on a body by my own sweet will. My heart is also spiritual. and I always think of the welfare of my devotees. Therefore, within my heart can be found the process of devotional service, which is meant for the devotees. Far from my heart have I abandoned irreligion, adharma, and non-devotional activities. They do not appeal to me. Due to all these transcendental qualities, people generally pray to me as Ṛṣabhadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the best of all living entities. So here Lord Ṛṣabhadeva is saying, I am the Supreme Lord. He's an incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself. In this verse, the words idam shariram mama durvibhavyam are very significant. Generally, we experience two energies, material energy and spiritual energy. We have some experience of the material energy, earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Because in the material world, everyone's body is composed of these elements. Within the material body is the spirit soul, but we cannot see it with the material eyes. So our body is material, we the soul, we are spiritual. When we see a body full of spiritual energy, it is very difficult for us to understand how the spiritual energy can have a body. It is said that Lord Ṛṣabhadeva's body is completely spiritual. Therefore, for a materialistic person, it is very difficult to understand. For us, body means made up of this earth, water, air, fire, ether. It has the skin and bones and flesh, because that's what we are exposed to. That's what our experience is, that all the bodies we see here is material. So we cannot understand, oh, there is a spiritual body, there is Sachidananda body. It completely bewilders us. How spiritual energy can have body? How can a body be spiritual? But Lord Ṛṣabhadeva, he's saying himself, my body is completely spiritual. Krishna is also saying in Bhagavad Gita, my transcendental form, spiritual form. For a materialistic person, the completely spiritual body is inconceivable. We have to accept the version of the Vedas when our experimental perception cannot understand a subject. So Vedic knowledge, spiritual knowledge, simply has to be received. For example, when we go to kindergarten, teachers telling us write A, B, C. We don't understand why even we are writing it, but we simply accept the authority of the teacher. We are not able to understand, oh, now if I start learning the alphabet, then I'll be able to read, I'll be able to write, but we simply accept the authority of the teacher. So similarly, we simply accept. God is saying his body is spiritual. So we accept this version. The Vedas are saying it. Yeah, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva himself is saying it. So we accept it. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Lord has a body with form, but that body is not composed of material elements. It is made of spiritual bliss, eternity, and living force. So Lord Brahma is saying the same thing. We can see, there is no contradiction. The Vedas are saying God has Sachidananda body. The devotees are saying God has Sachidananda body. And God himself is saying his body is Sachidananda. By inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord can appear before us in his original spiritual body. But because we have no experience of the spiritual body, we are sometimes bewildered and see the form of the Lord as material. So the Lord shows his form as it is, but we may not be able to understand that it is spiritual because we are just seeing everything material. So we may think Lord's form is also material, but then that is foolishness on our part. Doesn't mean the Lord's form is material. So the Lord has a form that is spiritual. Lord Ṛṣabhadeva, his form is spiritual. He himself is saying it here. Because then one may say, oh, but if it is spiritual, how come other people are able to see? But yeah, but because the Lord he is omnipotent, so he can give others this vision to see. But then the others may see the form as material instead of spiritual. The Mayavadi philosophers are completely unable to conceive of a spiritual body. They say that the spirit is always impersonal. And whenever they see something personal, they take it for granted that it is material. In Bhagavad Gita 9.11, it is said, Avajananti mam muda manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So Krishna is saying, I'm coming in my human form, but then those who are less intelligent, those who are foolish, they think I'm an ordinary human being. They're not able to understand that this form I'm showing them, it is transcendental. It is spiritual. They're not able to understand I'm God. Mama Bhuta Maheshwara, that He is the Supreme Lord. He's the Supreme Controller. He's saying then foolish people deride me. That people say that, oh, no, Krishna's form is material, made of some material goodness. Or then they say, how can God have a form? How can spirit have a form? But spirit has a form. It has. God himself is saying, yes, I have a form and this is my form. We simply accept it. This is how we receive the knowledge. We don't go around fighting with our teacher when she's teaching us ABC. We receive the knowledge patiently. Then we are able to understand later. Similarly, we receive the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, that his form is transcendental. Sat Chit Ananda. Unintelligent people think that the Supreme Lord accepts a body composed of the material energy. We can easily understand the material body, but we cannot understand the spiritual body. Therefore, Ṛṣabhadeva says, Idam shariram mama durvibhavayam. In the spiritual world, everyone has a spiritual body. There is no conception of material existence there. In the spiritual world, there is only service and the receiving of service. There's only sevya, seva, and sevaka. The person served, the process of service, and the servant. These three items are completely spiritual, and therefore the spiritual world is called absolute. So Lord Ṛṣabhadeva is saying, Idam shariram mama durvibhavyam. That we cannot understand his spiritual body. His body is spiritual, but we are thinking it's material. Then that is foolishness on our part. Then we are not able to understand that God has a spiritual body. In the spiritual world, everyone has a spiritual body. There's no material bodies there. Everyone's body is Satchit Ananda. Spirit, the form. We are thinking form means material. But we have to understand, material form is just a reflection of the real form. The real form is spiritual, and that's in the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, there is the object of service, there is service, and the servant. And all three are eternal. Service, receiving service, and the person who is served. Completely spiritual, the spiritual world is called absolute. There's no tinge of material contamination there. We may think service is also material, but because here in the material world, the service is done more like a business, the servant is going to serve the master because they get paid at the end of every month. If we cut no pay, then no servant also. So being completely transcendental to the material conception, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva states that his heart is composed of dharma. Dharma is explained in Bhagavad Gita 1866. Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam raja. In the spiritual world, every living entity is surrendered to the Supreme Lord and is completely on the spiritual platform. So that is Dharma. Surrender to God. Surrender to God. Although there are servitors, the serve and service, all are spiritual and variegated. The entities who are serving, the entities who are receiving the service, and the service itself. Everything is spiritual, everything is absolute. At the present moment, due to our material conception, everything is durvibhavya, inconceivable. Being the Supreme, the Lord is called Ṛṣabh, the best, in terms of the Vedic language. Nityo Nityanam. So we are a material body. Our mind is material. So all we can think is material only. Everything is matter. We are not able to understand. Spiritual world has the real form, the real variety. So Ṛṣabh, the best, is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord Himself. We are also spiritual, but we are subordinate. God is spiritual, we are also spiritual. But God is the maintainer, and we are the maintained. That's why we are subordinate. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Eko Bahunam Yovidadati Kava. That there are so many eternals. Among all these eternals, there is one eternal who is maintaining all other eternals. So God is maintaining all of us eternally. So there's a relationship between God and us. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is the foremost living entity. The word Ṛṣabh means the chief or the supreme and indicates the supreme being or God Himself. So Lord Ṛṣabhadeva is God Himself. He's an incarnation of God. He's not an ordinary human being. His body is transcendental, is spiritual. Satchid Ananda. Tasmad bhavanto hridayena jata.
तस्माद् भवन्तो हृदयेन जाता
Sarve mahiyam samamom sanabha.
सर्वे महेस्याम् अमुं सनाभाम्
Aklishta buddhya bharatam bhajatvam.
अभिक्लेष्ट बुद्ध्या
Bharatam Bhajatvam.
भजस्त्वम्
Shushrushanam tad paranam prajana.
शुश्रूषणं तद्भरणं प्रजानाम्.
My dear boys, you are all born of my heart, which is the seat of all spiritual qualities. Therefore, you should not be like materialistic and envious men. You should accept your eldest brother Bharat, who is exalted in devotional service. If you engage yourself in Bharat's service, your service to him will include my service, and you will rule the citizens automatically. In this verse, the word Hridaya indicates the heart, which is also called Ura, the chest. The heart is situated within the chest, and although instrumentally the son is born with the aid of the genitals, he is actually born from within the heart. According to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through the ritualistic ceremony known as the Garbhadhan. Ṛṣabhadev's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual. So what I understand is the consciousness of the mother and father. especially of the father is being said over here, then that kind of a soul is gonna take birth. If the consciousness is purified, then pure. And to purify the consciousness, have to do this ceremony called Garbhadan Samskar. Of course, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva, he's the Supreme Lord himself, so his heart is spiritual. Consequently, all the sons born from the heart of Ṛṣabhadeva were spiritually inclined. Nonetheless, Ṛṣabhadeva suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. All the brothers of Bharat Maharaj were advised by Ṛṣabhadeva to adhere to Bharat's service. The question may be asked why one should be attached to family members. For in the beginning, it was advised that one should not be attached to home and family. However, it is also advised, Mahi Yasam Padrajo Bhisheka. One has to serve the Mahiyan, one who is very spiritually advanced. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimukte. By serving the Mahat, the exalted devotee, one's path for liberation is open. So Lord Ṛṣabhadeva said, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimukte. By serving the pure devotee, we can get liberated. The path of liberation gets open, just by serving the pure devotees. By serving the devotee, one can get liberated. The family of Ṛṣabhadeva should not be compared to ordinary materialistic family. Bharat Maharaj, Ṛṣabhadeva's eldest son, was specifically very exalted. For this reason, the other sons were advised to serve him for his pleasure. That was to be their duty. The Supreme Lord was advising Bharat Maharaj to be the chief ruler of the planet. This is the real plan of the Supreme Lord. In the battle of Kurukshetra, we find that Lord Krishna wanted Maharaj Yudhishthir to be the supreme emperor of this planet. He never wanted Duryodhana to take the post. As stated in the previous verse, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva's heart is Hridayam Yatra Dharma. The characteristic Dharma is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. Surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what is Dharma? Surrender unto God. To protect Dharma, Paritranaya Sadhunam. The Lord always wants the ruler of the earth to be a devotee. So when the ruler is a devotee, then he can protect everyone, take care of everyone as a father takes care of the children. Then everything goes on nicely for the benefit of everyone. As soon as a demon rules the earth, everything becomes chaotic. At the present moment, the world is inclined toward the democratic process. But the people in general are all contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance. Consequently, they cannot select the right person to head the government. The president is selected by the votes of ignorant Shudras. Therefore, another Shudra is elected, and immediately the entire government becomes polluted. If people strictly followed the principles of Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee. Then automatically there would be good government. If Bhagavad Gita was taught right from the beginning of our life in schools, then everyone could make better decisions, better choices, become a devotee of the Lord and act in that capacity. Ṛṣabhadeva therefore recommended Bharat Maharaj as the emperor of this planet. Serving a devotee means serving the Supreme Lord, for a devotee always represents the Lord. So the devotee is always serving the Lord. He's an instrument in the hands of God. He's carrying out the will of the Lord. He's a representative of the Lord. So serving the devotee is serving the Lord also. When a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone. We hear the beautiful description when Maharaj Yudhishthir became the emperor of the earth. How the earth is so happy. The cows are happy that the udders are overflowing with milk and they are wetting the fields with their milk. And the earth is happy, so much grains, foodstuff, minerals, gold, jewels, everything. So that's why Ṛṣabhadeva is saying that Bharat Maharaj to be the emperor, because Maharaj Bharat is also, he's a pure devotee of the Lord. So we'll stop here for today. Did you want to add anything?
No.
Yeah.
Bharat Maharaj is the one, right? Then he leaves the kingdom and goes to the forest, and he gets attached to a deer.
Yes.
Maybe he's the one.
Yes. Yes, we are going to read about him also.
Okay.
Yeah. So because we can see, that how each king, they're ruling for some time, and after some time, they pass on the kingdom to a suitable heir, and then they go to engage in, dedicate completely to spiritual activities, dedicate their life. Like retiring, vanaprasth. They go into the forest to engage in devotional service. So yeah, Bharat Maharaj is the one who gets attached to the deer. Very interesting pastimes coming up. We'll be reading about that. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki